It is HNLive today on location at the 12th Annual Rocky Mountain Classic. I'm Dave Dawson. Thanks for joining us today. A pleasure to have the new commissioner of the Western Hockey League. He is Dan Neer, who joins us. And Dan, really appreciate you making time for us. First of all, I guess, what brings you by to the Rocky Mountain Classic this year?
Well, this is a key scouting event, key recruitment event for the Western Hockey League, and so I've spent a lot of the week here. All 22 of our teams were represented in different forms, many general managers, and I happen to have a son playing, so it was a perfect way to head down the street from Father David Bauer over here to Winsport and take it all in.
You get to wear a few different hats. You get to be commissioner, scout, and dad at the same time, I guess, right?
That's it. And, it's easing my transition into Calgary to be able to blend the two things together.
Yeah, 24 years Ron Robison spent in that position, and you taking over now. And what's the transition been like for you into the commissioner chair?
Well, there's a lot of things they don't put on the job description, Dave, which is no surprise, but it's been fantastic. And I'll start with Ron. Ron, a legend in the space, both in Calgary and the hockey community, but also in junior hockey. And he's been a tremendous supporter for me. Working with the governors and the owners of the teams has been tremendous. And getting to know fans, getting to know billets, getting to know education coordinators, the different people who contribute day to day up to the Western Hockey League has been awesome. And I'm looking forward to meeting more and more parents, because I think that's really part of the engine that brings us together, and this idea that we're there to develop players, not just on the ice, but off the ice. The vast majority of players coming through our league don't end up in the National Hockey League, so we're preparing young men for the next stage in life.
Yeah, and this event prepares young men as well, 13 and 14 years old, and we've talked a lot about just the growth and development. And you mentioned that the future stars of the league. It was surreal for me being able to do Oil Kings play-by-play for 2 months last year and watching some guys that have come through and are stars now in the league. How important are events like this, and just to get to see what the future is going to look like of your league?
Well, I think creating an environment like this really gives the kids a taste of what's to come. There's some pressure. It's not easy to play in these environments. Everybody's watching. Everything is digital and online, so you know who some of the other players are and who the competition is. And I think that ratchets things up, and it starts to separate who can really compete. And no one ever wants to see that divide, because hockey's supposed to be fun and it's youth sports. But I think that when you get to the high performance and elite levels, events like this create an environment that simulate, can a player play in the Western Hockey League? Are they ready for the next step in competition? And so the organizers here have done a tremendous job, and it's been fun to watch.
We've had scouts on and agents on talking about that process of coming into a parent's house at 14 years old and saying, hey, where does your son want to play? Obviously, the news this week with the NCAA now allowing Canadian Hockey League players to be playing throughout there as well. So is this, when it comes to the caliber of announcement for the hockey world, almost where were you when this announcement happened? Is it that much of a landscape-changing announcement for hockey?
Yeah, you tell me, but I know there's been a lot of conversation, a lot of work, and a lot of kind of bridge building that goes on as part of this. We're starting to interface with folks that we never have before. Any Western League game you're going to go to now, you'll see NCAA scouts watching our players, and that is a big difference. But this idea of being able to put young people in a position where they're not forced to make a really difficult choice at the age of 15 years old is good for players. And I think ultimately, if you break it all down, that's the best thing about this change, is that it's giving players additional choice at that age group. And then when they finish in our league, the idea that not only could you go to the National Hockey League, play pro somewhere else, continue on to youth sport, but NCAA being an option is a tremendous value add for players coming out of our league.
Dan, a common word that gets used in our world today is unity. I think we all love unity in the body from different areas when it comes professionally, family, relationally. I think an important component from what I've heard, especially from some of the agents, is imagine at 14 years old, like you talked about, going into a house and saying, what do you want to do? Charlie has someone coming in saying, you have to make this decision now. How big is that when it comes to the body of unity in working together with all the groups to all be on the same page when it comes to junior A, NCAA, and as well as major junior?
Yeah, sports are competitive, and so the idea of being collaborative and being player first is not intuitive for everybody in the system, but I think that decisions and movements like this create an opportunity for some of that unity that you talk about, and I can commit that we'll be on the forefront of that. And by way of example, when you think about if a player identifies to us that at the end of their career they want to pursue to the NCAA opportunities, we're going to need to give them education support. So we have an educational advisor with every club, but let's make sure they have the required coursework. Let's make sure they do SAT prep courses. And we're still learning what all of those requirements are, but I can tell you I've already asked, trying to figure out who at the NCAA is going to be the best contact for us to create that bridge. And those are the types of unifying activities that we'll be doing in the spirit of let's try and do right by the player in every possible case.
Yeah, I love that concept of unity. When you look at the Western Canada development model as well, working with junior A leagues now too. Dan, I know you're a busy guy. I really appreciate you making time for us today. A question has popped into my mind when we talk about unity. You look at Ontario and Quebec, and they draft at the under 16 age and under 15 for the Western Hockey League. Has there been any consideration to unifying together with that draft age, or is that on the table for evaluation?
So I think, coming out of this NCAA eligibility announcement, one of the things I'm trying to be cautious not to do is just say, well, let's wait and see. Let me try and tell people what I think is going to happen. This is an area that I think is wait and see. I don't think we know exactly how this is going to affect the landscape, but, we're different than Ontario and Quebec, as you mentioned right now. I don't know that one's better or one's worse. I think the general managers would love to be able to be more accurate with their choices, and the younger they are, the harder it is to be more accurate with your choices. But, I think what we're going to do is see how it shakes out, see how the age disbursement and the talent disbursement works through all this change, and then, evaluate whether anything should change as it relates to the composition of our teams, how they're built, drafts, so on and so forth.
Well, one, I guess, final question for you. I think when it comes to the caliber of players at a young age, Landon Dupont, Gavin McKenna, Connor Bedard, I think the Western Hockey League is doing okay in that category, especially the under-17s, pumping those athletes through.
Yeah, I would think that we're very, very pleased when you look at the national team program, the program of excellence, the teams that are competing in Sarnia this week. Both captains are coming out of the Western Hockey League. A lot of the top scorers coming out of the Western Hockey League. If you look at the under-17 Worlds, if you look at the Gretzky-Hlinka, we're doing all right as it relates to our relative position. But all three leagues are doing a fantastic job, and so we'll have to figure out what the path forward looks like.
All right. Well, while you're wearing all the hats you're wearing this week, from dad to scout to commissioner, appreciate you joining us today, and best of luck. Enjoy the rest of the weekend.
Thanks for having me, Dave.